Another state-owned enterprise, the Land Bank, recently indicated that it was experiencing liquidity problems. This after the bank defaulted on its loans, sparking concern in the agricultural sector. Woes at the Land Bank also come at a time when South Africa is battling COVID-19. We're joined now via Skype from Pretoria by the Group Managing Director of the National Emergent Redmeat Producers, Mlulami Mahanjana. Mr. Mahanjana, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Desiree. Good morning to your listeners too.
How is COVID-19 impacting on the smallholder farmers and red meat producers? And how are the problems at the Land Bank impacting your work even more?
Well, COVID-19 is affecting negatively to the smallholder farmer, especially because they are not technologically compliant. They are not at least part of the in the fourth industrial or even third or even second industrial revolution. With other commercial farmers, they can communicate using the ITC, they can sell, market their animals using ITC. With smallholder farmers who are still using the old primitive systems, it's really a dire situation. They are really struggling.
And yet farmers are part of the list of essential service providers, and obviously their efforts are hampered at this time.
Yes, they are hampered, but fortunately enough, the ministry have come up with a sort of a support mechanism where smallholder farmers have been offered 1.2 billion, where they can support them, especially the support came at the right opportune time, because we are already starting to face winter period in some parts of the country. Hence, now the smallholder farmers are in a very good mood to get that support. And also because there's this window period that we have been moved from stage 5 to stage 4, there will be a little bit of movement of the farmers so that they can be able to run the operations. You mentioned something about Land Bank, which I haven't commented about. Yes, the issue of Land Bank is another setback to the smallholder farmer. You must understand that the majority of small-scale farmers rely on the Land Bank. The mandate of the Land Bank recently, or over the past years, was to focus on the developing farming sector. Now that the Land Bank is in this situation, has been downgraded, they have got a problem with their cash flow. This is gonna affect dearly the smallholder farmers and food security in particular. Hence, we called on government, specifically the Department of Treasury, to come in and intervene and support Land Bank and recapitalize Land Bank so that it can have enough cash flow, it can have enough capital to own land via the intermediaries like the cooperatives and other intermediaries. Otherwise, this will really affect food security in the country negatively.
You've spoken about the funding that government has advanced to smallholder farmers, and you're also asking for government to recapitalize the Land Bank. What's more urgent than the other? What's the priority for your sector?
Well, both are priorities, because these funding are getting into different mainstreams. The 1.2 billion have already been allocated to the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development and Land Affairs. Hence, that money, we are just waiting until we get the vouchers and go and buy the necessities that we need during this dire period. The issue of Land Bank, you must understand there are other farmers who didn't get the opportunity or who are not part of the opportunity to access the funding of this 1.2 billion. they have been directed to Land Bank. If Land Bank doesn't have enough cash flow or enough funds, there is no way. So it means the government have got to recapitalize Land Bank so that it can do the same. It means 1.2 billion is not sufficient enough to sustain the sector during this COVID-19 period.
So many departments have announced figures, 1.2 billion in this case, that will be dispersed to the necessary beneficiaries. But there's also been complaints about the disbursement and the money landing up where it's meant to. How are you happy about the process as it unfolds in terms of where it will go and where it will end up?
We are quite happy this time. It has improved remarkably. In the previous, this money, if 1.2 billion was meant to reach the farmers, only 40% was lending to the farmer. The other 60% was siphoned in the route towards the farmer. Now the government have came with a new system which we are quite happy about, which is now the coupon system. It means there are no intermediaries in between. The money will come from government directly to you via a coupon, and then you use the coupon to go and buy your nearest supplier or cooperative. I think the system has improved a lot. We are quite happy. We don't say there's still a room for government to improve the system using the ITC. But unfortunately, because most of our people are not ITC relevant or compliant, I think the coupon system is the right system at this point in time.
Of course, such a conversation in the bigger picture is about food security in the country, concerns that post-COVID-19 there will be food insecurity. Do you think we farmers especially are in a place to produce sufficient food for the country?
Well, if you have heard the president of World Farmers Organization, Dr. Theo Diache, he mentioned that, yes, today we are able to supply food in the country. But if this can persist for the next 6 months or so, it will be very difficult. You must understand that our scale of operation, we are not operating at our normal 100% scale. We are operating at a 30, 20% scale, using skeleton employees for those who are still having some employees in their farms. So we are managing at this point in time. If the entire lockdown system, if the entire we can be able to fight this COVID-19 within the next 2 to 3 months, obviously, the food security, I can vouch that we will be safe in South Africa. But if this thing can extend for more than 3 months from now, we will be in a very dire situation. That is the problem that we are. That's why we always warn the people, warn the farmers that they must be able to heed the call of the government in terms of the regulations of COVID-19. That is why we are calling also to the general citizen, because if there is no food, it will be a serious problem. The government is even allowing people to move just because they've got to get the food. If now in their movement they cannot even be able to get that food, that will be a serious problem. So that is why we say we hope we can be fast enough to defeat this COVID-19 in South Africa so that we don't get to a state where we can't even be able to produce enough food for our country.
We're talking about smallholder farms generally, but specifically you are in the livestock space, from the red meat producers space. What specific challenges are you facing in this specific space at this time?
Well, as smallholder farmers, as I've already mentioned, our marketing channel that we are exposed to, that we are used to, that we can be able, is to move your animal to a place of sale. That is the old called public auctions. Now, it is not easy to do that. It is not easy to move your animals, though the government have allowed that public auctions can happen. But you must know that the public auctions are good by having as many buyers as possible and as many sellers as possible. Under the current environment, you can't have as many. People are scared to go to public places where there are a lot of people. It means even if you can take those animals, you'll find that there are very few buyers who are prepared to buy your animals. Obviously, the prices won't be good enough if there are few buyers and there are more suppliers. And hence, the commercial farmers are in a better position because they can take a photograph in there of their animals, put it on the internet, and say, I'm selling these 100 head of
Mr.
cattle,
Mahanjana, I'm going to have
this is
to...
the amount I want. A buyer will come because they are IT compliant. That is why we say this is a lesson.
We're going to have to end it
us
here,
in the
unfortunately.
agricultural
Thank you
sector.
so much for talking to us this morning. Aggrey Mahanjana is the Group Managing Director at the National Emergent Red Meat Producers.